So if the Gilmore Girls and Dawson's Creek TV shows takes you down memory lane, then you don't want to miss today's show. We'll be talking to the amazing Gina Fattore, the author and scriptwriter behind the very famous Gilmore Girls and Dawson's Creek series, about her upcoming new debut novel called The Spinster Diaries. So don't go away. We'll be right back. If you're just joining us, a great big welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. If you're watching us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Periscope, on YouTube, a warm welcome. I'm your host, Bridgetti Banda from Cape Town in South Africa. And today we'll be talking to Gina Fattore of the very famous Gilmore Girls and Dawson Creek TV series about her brand new debut novel called The Spinster Diaries. But before we meet Gina, let me first welcome and say hello to my amazing co-host, Mary Elizabeth Jackson. She's the award-winning author of the Poolicious children's book series that promotes empowering I am statements. Mary, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here, and also an advocate for special needs and disabilities. So I'm excited to be here today, and we've got a gorgeous day, and I know you've got a cold day, and I know what we're doing. We're keeping balance on the planet. That's what we're doing. I figured it out finally, right? So I got the hot, you got the cold. There's the happy medium, right? So I'm excited to be here. We have a great interview today. And I have a short announcement that I want to make. I'm super excited because I just signed a contract with a publicist, with Mickey Mickelson out of Canada. I'm so excited about this. And we're going to have him on the show sometime soon coming up. So he can kind of share, like what his job is and what he does and what he means to authors and others who might be looking into that and they're not sure about it. So I'm excited about that, and we're excited about getting onto our show and bringing our author on. Now she can add that to her long resume, right?
Right. So Gina Fattore, for those of you who don't know her, she's a television writer whose credits include Demi, Better Things, Unreal, Masters of Sex, Parenthood, Californication, Gilmore Girls, and Dawson Creek. Her TEDx talk, Become What You Believe, has had more than 16,000 views. And so let's not waste any more time and welcome her to the show, shall we?
Yes. Hi.
Gina, welcome to the show. I love your surname, Gina Fattore. Sounds like a strong, powerful woman.
I think she's living up to that. I think she's absolutely living up to that.
So. Yes. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a gray day in LA, but it's good to be interacting with the outside world.
I know, isn't that fun? And I think we're going to have you on again because I think there's just so much to ask you. You've done so much in your career. And I mean, I know I have a plethora of questions and I know Bridgetti does too. And 30 minutes goes by so fast. So we need to just hop on in and just start with our questions, right?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Oh, absolutely. I think we want to just dive right in because there's so much we want to know about you. So tell us, how did you get into writing? And how did you transition into script writing? I mean, you've done some amazing scripts. How did you get started? Where did you start?
Well, I mean, I really wanted to be a writer from the time I was like 10. And, you know, like according to my best friend's mom, I was like, I'm going to read every book in the library. Like I was very driven. I was very intense. I was growing up in Indiana, and, you know, my parents, like, we got the newspaper, we got the Chicago Tribune, and I loved the library. So it really didn't occur to me back then about writing screenplays or writing for TV. I really was focused on just being a writer, and really being a journalist was kind of what I saw was a way you could make a living. So I was that person who was the high school newspaper, you know, yearbook, like just doing all that stuff and just trying to get my work out there. But I think looking back, I was a little introverted, which is always what's so funny about later I worked on Gilmore Girls, and Rory Gilmore really wanted to be a journalist, but she was also quite shy and bookish. And, but, you know, I just kept going down that path. I kept, you know, I did internships at magazines. In my 20s, I worked at a weekly newspaper in Chicago. But I just happened to meet a TV writer at a point in my 20s, where, you know, I know that I would have had any other connection with that career. But he's one of, in fact, the most successful and greatest TV writers around right now. His name is Greg Daniels, and he created the American version of The Office. And also this show, King of the Hill, which was my first job in television. I was an assistant. I was the showrunner's assistant on King of the Hill, and got an episode to write on a freelance basis. And that was really what launched me as a TV writer. And because of our union, the Writers Guild of America, television writing is a way you can really, you know, make a living. And certainly was back when I started doing it in the 90s. There were very few women doing it and very few people of color. But it, you know, really was an industry that was, you know, you could make a living at. And journalism and other kinds of writing, unfortunately, very sadly, it's been a harder road these years.
Wow, it has. So you had, I'm finishing up today writing a book about some of this stuff, and you really had one of those balls just drop out of the sky into your lap. And I think those are all, it's just when all that lines up, it's absolutely amazing, the doors that open up to you in your life. Because if you'd not been there at that point, like you said, you may not be where you are right now, or it may have taken you longer to get where you are right now. So what a blessing for you, and for all of us who watch what you write, what a blessing for all of us. So what would you say are the key differences between being an author and a screenwriter? Because now you can talk about this.
Yeah, well, I mean, specifically, I've always been a TV writer. Like my whole career, I've worked in TV. I've tried to write a couple movies here and there, but I've never sold any of them or gotten them made. And the thing about being a TV writer that is so different than being either a playwright or a novelist is that you don't have any control over the finished version of your work when you're a TV writer. If you're the head writer on the show and you're the boss and the showrunner, we call it here, if you're the, you know, producer and the writer with all of the cards and all of the power, then you have essentially final cut of the work that you're making. But if you're just a writer, you know, writer producer who's lower level, you don't get the final say. So I've noticed this when I explain this to other kinds of writers. I just collaborated with a novelist for 3 years on making a show. And, you know, we're really used to, as writers, you know, just you have control over the words on the page and you can make them do whatever you want. And I think that working in TV is 100% a collaboration. A lot of it is you just, you know, especially in the days when I started, like on a show like Dawson's Creek or Gilmore Girls, we made 22, 23 episodes a year. And so that means you're constantly just outlining the next episode and planning for the next episode. And sometimes it's your job to actually write the first draft of that episode. And that means, you know, you are doing what we all think of as writing, which is sitting alone at your desk writing. But, you know, once you do that draft, you hand it off to the head writer, and the head writer and the showrunner makes that episode whatever he or she wants it to be. So that's not usually how a lot of us writers think of writing. You have to let go, and, you know, your part of the job is then over. And, you know, on a lot of shows, you might also be then producing that script. Even though the showrunner came in and said, let's do this, this, and this, you may be the person who goes to the casting session and watches the actors do those sort of, sometimes you have those 2-line roles, 3-line roles that are smaller, and you need to fill those. Or you might be the person who sits in on the production meeting so that someone is there when every single department head is, you know, asking questions about this week's script and saying, do we need this? Do we need this? What props do we need? What costumes do we need? So you're actually doing sometimes a lot of that kind of work, which is very different than writing, but you know, just that's kind of the greatest thing about TV, at least in this country. In TV, writers are producers of their own work. And very often, if they are the showrunner, they maintain that creative control. And historically, in movies, writers have always been the first people to be cut out of the process. Like, you wrote it, goodbye, the director is now in charge, you know, we're done with you.
That's quite interesting.
That's amazing. And there's so many dynamics that those of us on this side watching don't realize. I wanted to ask you just really quick, because we haven't spoken about Dare Me, which is on USA.
Right. And
that is completely different, would you say, than anything else that you've written prior to, right? Because it is definitely totally opposite of Gilmore Girls, which my daughter and I are binging right now. We're in season 2, episode 11, I think. So, but how much control do you have on that show? Because I know there's, you know, everyone has a part. And so do you, in the position that you have on that show, being executive director, correct?
Yeah.
How much do you have on character, like auditioning people and picking characters?
Right. Well, so that was actually, Dare Me was my first time being an executive producer and a showrunner of the show. So, like, you know, up to that point, I had done, you know, just been working so many years, and I'd worked my way up to the credit right before that, which is co-executive producer. And, you know, you can have a lot of responsibilities in that role. But Dare Me, I started collaborating with the novelist who had written the book Dare Me. And, you know, from the beginning, we were in this situation where she had only worked on, say, one other TV show. And I had worked on like 12 or 14, maybe 13, 14 at that point. So, but we were, you know, the goal was for us to come together and make her book into a show. So we, you know, formed the kind of collaboration where we just knew, like, you know, we both had to be in agreement on what this show was. And she had been working on the project for so long at the time that I met her, which is frequently happens in TV and movies. It just takes a very long time for something to finally, you know, get going. And so when we came together, I think she was actually kind of grateful for a little bit of an outside perspective where, like, here I come in and I read her book first. I read the book first. And then my agency back then, William Morris Endeavor, like, sent me her script. And so I had to think on, like, well, what is this as a TV show? And then she and I met actually over Skype because she lived in New York and I lived in LA. And eventually we did meet in person, but, you know, we just were seeing the same thing, the same show. And so we decided to collaborate. And from that point forward, she and I were the showrunners and the exec producers. So we made every decision moving forward. We hired the director to direct the pilot. We cast all of those parts, and, like, we had other producers. And our director of our pilot was like an amazing collaborator. And we kind of formed this group of 3 when we were doing things like casting and locations. And the director found the most amazing production designer and cinematographer. And, you know, the goal is just to keep adding brilliant people to your team and letting them do their stuff. But the novelist and I, her name's Megan Abbott, we, as leaders, it was always very important to us that we needed to be in agreement. And then we bring our vision out to the rest of our staff. And that's how we make a show.
Wow. So that's amazing, because it basically means that, you know, if you want to get into script writing, you better be a team player, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I mean, I think, like, you know, and that also speaks a little bit of why I decided finally to try to write a book, because you know, it is so rewarding when the collaborations go well. But I mean, I can't lie. I've been doing this for 20 years. Like sometimes you are in a group environment that it has some dysfunction to it. And that can be really frustrating, you know, and you don't have control. So, you know, I did start writing my book back in the days when I was working on Gilmore Girls and Californication and other shows where I wasn't in charge. And so, you know, on the weekends, I would be like, well, what do I want to write that's just for me and that no one else is going to rewrite? And also I would joke that like, it's something that like, I don't have to explain to like 20 people, like, okay, actors, okay, casting director, okay, line producer, you know, because so much of screenwriting is, I think, just trying to make sure that everyone understands what you put on the page in the same way, you know, because there's a little bit of ambiguity, I think, especially more in dialogue where the actors can interpret, but the location manager has to know, what am I finding here? You know, you can't be vague about things like that.
So this must have been much easier to write a book because it is just you. Now you do have to go through editing and people, you know, you have to have all those things corrected. Yes. I would say as a writer, that's sort of hard because you're like, but I really like that line. And it's like what I felt at the moment, you know, gotta go, you know.
Oh my goodness. Gina, where do you get your inspiration from? I mean, you've just done so much, and just listening to you about the process of script writing and, you know, all the teamwork and interaction that's got to go on, and also just from what I'm hearing, you know, the fast pace that you're having to produce stuff in one year. Where does it all that inspiration come from?
I mean, I have to say originally, like, I am one of those people who, with my TV writing, like, I always loved TV. Like, there are a lot of people now who are sort of like coming into TV who like, were sort of like, TV, like I prefer movies or I prefer books or whatever. But, you know, as a kid, I did watch a tremendous amount of TV. And, you know, so I think I get inspired, you know, by, like if I'm starting a new project for myself and I'm trying to write an original pilot, which I've done many times, they've just never been produced. But, you know, I will sit down and I will just watch like 5, you know, pilots that I think, you know, speak to what I'm trying to do, you know, and like this one, the dialogue, this one, the tone, this one, you know, and I think I approached my book in the same way that I had like this whole shelf of books that I thought like, oh, this is what I'm trying to do. I have an unreliable narrator. I have like, you know, just a sort of a free form kind of monologue style that's not a lot of structure to it. You know, I really do. It's not so much stealing as it is like, you know, just again, like you said, inspiration, like being inspired by other people's work. And, you know, believe me, sometimes something is so good. This is how I always feel about Jane Austen, that it actually doesn't inspire you because you're just like, how could I ever do anything that brilliant?
Yes, and her work is, even today, her work is beyond brilliant. Oh my gosh. I mean, I just get goosebumps sometimes watching her stuff or reading her stuff. And I've got my girls, they love it too. So, but I just think it's so, I love, you know, you are living, they're going to make a movie about you someday. I just know it, your life story, because you literally are living the dream of what a lot of people dream about. My co-writer just signed a contract, got the first check in the bank, and he's just writing with a producer. He's doing a screenplay. So I'm really, really excited for him because that's a direction we both want to move into. So I'm super excited about all that for him. And I don't know, he's going to try to watch today because he was excited about you being on here. And I don't know, he's probably knowing him, you know, he's locked in a room somewhere. So, but what do you feel like, and I know this is probably a hard question, but what do you feel like has been your best work to where you are right now? Because it'll obviously continue to get better and better and bigger and change as you go. But, you know, and you may not have a favorite. Maybe you like all of them. I don't know.
Well, it's funny. Like, I mean, I really am so proud of Dare Me, which unfortunately, like USA Network has decided not to make more episodes of it. So we made 10 episodes and, you know, there's still some chance that maybe we could convince another network to produce more episodes. But they, about a month or so ago, like said that they're, you know, obviously all production has basically shut down right now because of the pandemic. And but they just kind of said they didn't want to do more. But I think in terms of finally getting to be not just a writer, but an executive producer and a showrunner, it was just really like a moment where I was like, people had been honestly telling me for a long time that they didn't think I could do it, or just kind of undermining my confidence. I've worked for some bosses who did that actually, and because that perks them up, right? To feel like, oh, I'm so much better than all these people who I employ. And so it was really satisfying. And I just really am genuinely so proud of it. Like all of these, just all of the artisans and just the look of it, the beautiful, our crew who made our show in Toronto also do Handmaid's Tale, which is just like, a gorgeous, gorgeous show. And they're just really amazing crafts people, who know their work. And so I'm super proud of that. And, I am proud in a funny way of Dawson's Creek because I wrote 20 episodes of that. And a lot of that is my own writing, my own dialogue, my own work, because I stayed there for so long that I achieved this level of seniority. And of course, honestly, my book is like a whole other
wait, I want to put you on full screen for that, Gina.
I want you to show it.
Because, really my own my own work and my own voice, because really the trick of being a TV writer is that you have to write in the voice of the show, right? And Gilmore Girls is the perfect example, right? Like Amy Sherman Palladino created that show in this very distinctive style, and everyone who ever worked on it, our job was just to come up with great story ideas and situations that you could put Lorelai and Rory into, emotional moments, funny moments, all that stuff, and to write outlines. And I never worked with Amy. I only worked on the very last season of the show, which is the one that she didn't write and direct herself. And a lot of the fans really disliked it. So it's kind of controversial. There's still people like writing, think pieces about how bad season 7 of of Gilmore Girls was. But, I was one of a staff of people who we really did our best. And, we just made the show that we thought was closest to what,
it should be, right? Or what it has been. I know my daughter said she cried.
Gina, tell us.
I'm really proud of it. I think we did the best we could, knowing that like at the end of season 6, I won't spoil it, but like Lorelai had taken, a controversial step at the end of season 6 in terms of.
She just didn't want it to end. She didn't want it to end. She's like, no, it can't end.
We want some more. Bring us some more.
Yeah.
Gina, tell us very quickly about the Spinster Diaries.
I know, because we might not get there, so do it now.
Okay.
Yes, we're waffling too much here. Tell us a little bit about the book and who it's written for.
Well, in a funny way, it really was written for me because I was like, I think losing my mind at that point in my career where, I had written so many pilots that had never been shot, and I was working so hard on these on other people's shows, which were, incredibly rewarding. But, the 10-year-old me who really wanted to be a writer, wanted to write in a very distinct voice that was all my own. And I actually used to have like a newsletter in my 20s that was sort of written in this comic voice. And that's my book is a comedy. That's why it's kind of short because comedy kind of sometimes gets old and it doesn't have a lot of structure or plot to it, which all the TV shows I write are just structure and plot. Mm-hmm. Like that is TV in a nutshell. And so it's really just, it's very autobiographical. It's kind of about being a TV writer, which a lot of people have noticed. They were like, I didn't really understand what it was like to be a TV writer. And then I read the book. And also the main character is going through a little bit of a health crisis. And, it's one of those things where you're told you have to just watch and wait, which is really like the ultimate metaphor for living in a time of anxiety and in a state of anxiety, which is that you don't know what the future holds and you're a little bit scared and a little worried. But
like right now.
But, yeah.
I mean, I was thinking the same thing.
Perfect. Watch and wait. Are you going to write a TV show about time right now? Because there's so much material, and it's going to continue. I think, and I did want. That's one of the things I wanted to ask. Are you guys? Is everybody halted on production right now? I know I have a friend who's an actor, and I think he's in Orlando or Atlanta, and they're just getting ready to start filming again. And so, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, everything everything is completely shut down, and the studios just came together, I think it was last week, and tried to come up with a set of guidelines and a system for like, this is how we could maybe go back to doing the work that we're doing. But people I talk to who are like actively writing on shows right now, because writing is the one part of the process that can happen while we're in this lockdown situation. Everyone's talking about, they're being told, don't write crowd scenes, don't write fights, like, which is hard sometimes because a lot of movies unfortunately involve violence, and sex scenes. Most of the shows I've written would involve like kissing and things like that that are more problematic now. So what I'm doing now is I'm between things because my show did not get renewed. So and we're all trying to come up with ideas for new shows. And I've heard a couple people who've sold some ideas, but I think everybody's kind of waiting to see. There are people actually making these little shows where you do what we're all doing right now, right? You send the actors iPhones or other cameras, and you try to do all of this remotely, and you try to write stories that can be filmed in that way, very simply. And I haven't tried to do that yet, but I have a friend who's doing it. It's like all writers, we all know it seems like a time where you should be like, well, I should be writing something, but at the same time, everyone's kind of, doing their job and taking care of their kids and just feeling very unsteady and unfocused. And there's so much, stuff going on in the world right now that also draws attention away from that. So
yeah, it's very.
Well, I think we're in a time of revolution, of reinventing ourselves. Time of learning to do things a different way. I mean, think of the time when it was fashionable, when everybody on a movie set sat with a cigarette in their hand. It was like a thing. Every movie had someone with a cigarette in their hand. And then when smoking was in a cocktail, and when that sort of was no longer the thing to do, it just got phased out. Yeah. And so, we're in another time of phasing things out, of reinventing, doing something differently, and I like the phrase. There's this guy that coined the phrase of not thinking outside of the box, because it still means you're thinking around the box. He's saying kick the box. Get rid of the box and build it from the ground up. Do something completely radically different. So that's what it is. It's giving us an opportunity to be radical and be different.
Right. You just need to write a show that's all about, well, some of this has been done, but I mean to the extreme of OCD, paranoid, and narcissistic, because all the selfies, oh, look, I just put deodorant on. I'm going to take a shot at myself, right? Okay. I mean, that's stupid, correct? Right. So you have that. And then we're like, we meet people and we do the elbow, and they're like, oh, please don't come near me. Don't breathe on me. Don't even look my way and think anything negative. So it's just so extreme. I mean, it's really kind of funny if you think about writing a show that would
actually would make a hilarious movie. I tell you that.
Absolutely. There you go, Gina. That's your next project, and it started here. So just put us in the credits. Idea came from. Yesterday we had our special needs show on, and we had our local executive director for Autism Tennessee, and she had been sick recently, and so during the end of the show, right at the end when we got off, she got a call from the health department giving her COVID results. So Bridgetti and I are sitting here listening, right, and so they were negative. Thank goodness. But she said, and I quote, this is from Babs, and we laughed for 5 minutes over this. So the test for COVID is like a pap smear for the brain. And I mean, we could not stop laughing. And I was like, can I please borrow that? Because that is very accurate and disgusting at the same time.
Oh my God.
So now we've said it all in public. Because I mean, this is really wow. I mean, whoever thought, right? In our lifetime.
It is. It's all stranger than anyone could have imagined. I mean, I just look back now on like like those first couple weeks when everybody was watching TV and like people would shake hands with each other and you'd be like, why are they doing that? Why, what? Like,
yeah, wait, here's the Lysol. Oh,
yeah.
So I don't know if you watched Laura Cleary. I think that's her name. She's on Facebook. You have to watch her. Oh my word, you will pee in your pants laughing over the stuff that this woman does. And she has a video that she did, and it's like wipe and spray. What, you know, she does all these videos. You have to watch her. Oh my gosh, she's hysterically funny, and she gets really obnoxious with the Lysol spray, spraying the mouth, and you know, all kinds of. She just really takes it, and it's very funny the stuff she does.
Oh my goodness.
But,
So Gina, where can we find your book?
Oh, yes.
Yes, that one.
yeah, that one.
Bookshop.org is that great new site where you can order and like support your local independent bookstore. It's also on barnesandnoble.com. They ordered a bunch of copies, like hard copies, and then the stores had to close.
Oh.
So that's a good source. And Amazon, of course, like is begun shipping out books again, I think, after they kind of deprioritized that. Let's see. You know, there's more info on my website, which is ginafattore.com, just my name.com. Yeah, it's this is it again. It's Prospect Park Books. You can also order directly from them. They're a wonderful independent press here in Los Angeles, and that's who published my book.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you have it in an ebook and audio as well?
Yes, ebook and the audiobook, which a couple of my friends did listen to, and they said it was a good audiobook. I haven't listened to my own audiobook. That seems like, do people do that? That's kind of weird. But
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it depends on, did you do the recording or did somebody else?
No, it's an actress, but one of my friends in LA who's an actress, you know, knows this actress knows her work. She's does, you know, just really known for that audiobook, you know, thing, which is a very specific skill.
It is a very specific skill. Yeah, so you might want to listen to in I guess it's like watching yourself in a film, because you're like, do I really want to see? Because I'm going to sit there and go, oh my God, did I really just do that? You know, or I need to fix all that. You know, I don't know. So, I mean, I don't know. It might be kind of fun. Somebody's perspective, like portraying your voice and their voice might be really kind of cool.
Yeah, it is funny. I'm used to watching actors, you know, say the lines that I wrote. And it is fascinating because sometimes when I'm sitting in casting, a lot of times what I'm looking for is the actor who just makes me not embarrassed that I wrote that line. Like, you know, because sometimes you're like, oh, what was I thinking? There's that way too wordy, you know, or like, and you hear what's wrong with it. And then this, you know, brilliant actor will walk in the room and just like, you know, or nowadays you see them on videotape, but back when I started, they would walk in the room and do the scene and you'd be like, wow, they brought something I didn't realize was there to it. And it's a great experience.
It's wonderful. Gina, thank you so much. We're out of time.
We
have to sadly say goodbye. It was wonderful chatting to you.
Yes,
thank you so much. And thank you to our audience on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Periscope, and on Twitter. It was great having you with us. And also thank you to all our replay viewers. Take care, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you again next week. So from us, it's goodbye for now.
Bye.